My name is Griffin Miles. I'm 39 years old, and if you drive through Austin's north suburbs, past the live oak canopies and the country clubs with their immaculate greens, you'll find a house that looks like something out of a lifestyle magazine. White siding. Rose hedges. Sabrina insisted on pruning herself, though she rarely did. A glass-paneled front door that cost more than my first car. It sits right on the edge of a gated golf course community, the kind with artificial lakes and golf carts that hum like whispers. From the outside, our home looked curated, successful, charming, even aspirational. But inside, it was hollow. Our smiles were for show, our conversations scripted, and somewhere along the way, my marriage to Sabrina stopped being a partnership and became a press release. She was always the kind of woman who lit up a room, effortlessly magnetic, socially sharp, poised in heels and lipstick even when the rest of us were just trying to keep up with Monday. At events, she knew exactly when to laugh, how to tilt her head, how to introduce me like I was both trophy and proof. "This is Griffin," she'd say, clutching my arm. "My rock." But at home, that rock was crumbling under the weight of everything we didn't say, everything we couldn't fix. Fertility clinics. Failed treatments. That cold December morning when we stared at the single pink line on the test and didn't speak for a full hour. That night, she slept in the guest room. A month later, she was back to brunch with the girls and yoga at 6 a.m., while I stayed behind nursing a silence that grew more suffocating by the day. So when she burst into the room last Thursday, all smiles and perfume and surprise, holding 2 weekend bags and a hotel confirmation printed in glossy color, I blinked twice before responding. "A getaway?" I asked, setting my tablet down. "Just us." "Just us," she beamed. "We need this, Griff. You know we do." She kissed my cheek, and for a moment, I wanted so badly to believe her. I wanted to believe that something had shifted, that this was more than a PR move in our private saga. I wanted to believe she missed me, that she still saw me, the way she used to, before the medical appointments, before the tension, before the trust began to bleed out of the corners of our conversations like slow, invisible ink. I packed lightly. A duffel bag with 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, a book I'd never finished, and the same cologne she once said reminded her of our honeymoon in Charleston. I stared at the mirror before leaving, half hoping my reflection would show a man on the cusp of something romantic. Instead, it showed a man already mourning something he hadn't lost yet. My gut, always quieter than my logic but often more accurate, had started to hum. Low. Uneasy. The morning we left, the sky was clear but pale, like it hadn't fully committed to sunshine. Sabrina wore her favorite travel scarf and oversized sunglasses, the kind that made her look like a 60s film star. She handed me a cold brew as I climbed into the passenger seat and gave me that grin I hadn't seen in months. "Ready to rediscover each other?" she asked. I tried to smile. "Let's go." But something in her tone had a rehearsed rhythm to it, the kind you use when you've practiced a line too many times in the mirror. We pulled out of our driveway as the sprinkler system whirred to life behind us. I looked back once, not at the house, but at the life we constructed inside it. A fragile structure built on beautiful lies. I didn't say a word as we drove past the familiar coffee shop, the park where we used to walk after dinner, the grocery store where we'd argued over organic produce like it was a battle for dignity. It all blurred together behind the tinted glass. She started playing a playlist from her phone. Old love songs, the kind we used to slow dance to in our cramped first apartment, back when we thought struggle was something you outgrew with age and nicer countertops. "Remember this?" she asked, as The Luckiest by Ben Folds began to play. I nodded, but my chest ached. I remembered it all, too clearly. The way she cried when I proposed. The way she used to fall asleep curled into me like we were designed that way. For a while, the miles passed quietly. Sabrina hummed under her breath and reached for my hand now and then. But every time her phone buzzed, which it did often, she'd glance down and tilt the screen just out of my sight. Once, she chuckled softly. "Just the girls," she said. "They're jealous we're doing a couple's trip. Says it's old-school romantic." I nodded but said nothing. Because old-school romantic didn't come with hidden text messages and sudden changes in our bank statements. It didn't come with the smell of a stranger's cologne on her scarf last week or the ghosting of perfume that wasn't hers on her skin one morning after Pilates. I offered to drive after the second hour, my legs beginning to cramp. She refused. "You should rest," she said, glancing in the rearview. "Just enjoy it for once." Her tone was too sweet, like honey stirred into boiling water, pleasant but scalding underneath. I noticed her checking the mirror again and again. Not for traffic, but like she was waiting or watching. Around exit 37, we passed a faded gas station sign. Last one for 40 miles. She flipped the signal. Let's stretch our legs, she said. Her voice was calm, but her grip on the wheel was tight. I nodded slowly, the hum in my gut rising a notch. The station looked like it hadn't been updated since the early 90s. A single pump, cracked pavement, a dust-colored dog asleep on the front step. Something about the scene gave me the kind of chill that doesn't start in the skin, it starts in the bones. I stepped out of the car, the dry wind scraping against my skin, and took a deep breath. I'll check the bathroom, I said. She waved a hand casually, heading toward the trunk. See if they've got snacks too. As I crossed the parking lot, a man in a grease-stained tee and oil-streaked jeans stood at the window, cleaning with slow, deliberate circles. He looked up as I passed. His eyes met mine. There was something in his gaze, something urgent. I didn't understand it yet. Not then. But I would. I just didn't know that this wasn't the start of a romantic weekend. It was the start of my escape. The thing about glass is it looks clean until the sun hits it just right. Then you see every smudge, every fingerprint, every streak you pretended wasn't there. That's what our marriage had become. A house of glass built on well-lit angles, polished smiles, and a shared agreement to not look too closely. But eventually, the light shifts. I used to believe we were solid. Sabrina and I met at a film screening downtown, an indie documentary on grief and cultural memory. I was there alone, recently heartbroken, trying to distract myself with something thoughtful. She was with friends, wearing a rust-colored scarf and laughing like someone who had never been hurt. We struck up a conversation over bitter coffee and soft jazz playing through the venue lobby. She was magnetic in that first hour, opinionated, clever, quick to challenge me. I remember thinking, this is a woman who knows how to live. But knowing how to live and knowing how to love, they're not the same. For a while, we were a team. We hosted small dinners in our cramped apartment, adopted a rescue dog with a crooked tail, made lists of baby names we never used. The love was real then, messy, unfiltered, unpretentious. We struggled like most people. We fought over petty things, whose turn it was to wash dishes, whether or not to buy the good laundry detergent. But we always came back to each other. With apologies. With long Sunday mornings wrapped in each other under blankets. With that look she used to give me across a crowded room, the one that said, I see you. I choose you. And then we stopped saying things out loud. It started slow. The silence crept in after the second failed fertility cycle. The doctor's office was too cold, too sterile, the nurse too cheerful for the moment. Sabrina held my hand while they delivered the news, her thumb lightly tracing the bone of mine. She didn't cry. Neither did I. Not until later. At home, she went straight to the bedroom, shut the door, and that was it. She didn't want to talk. Didn't want to plan another attempt. Didn't want to try acupuncture or adoption or anything, really. Let's just live, she said one night. But she stopped living with me. Somewhere in that void, something in her hardened. The warmth in her voice, that easy laughter, even the teasing way she used to say my name, all of it disappeared behind a polished exterior that only appeared when someone was watching. And people were always watching. She posted carefully framed shots of our dinners, our vacations, our anniversary cards. The captions were always sweet. So proud of the life we're building. Grateful for my forever teammate. I'd look at them and feel like I was reading fiction. Beautiful, well-edited fiction with perfect lighting and zero substance. After my father passed, something else shifted. He wasn't just my dad, he was my compass. Steady, quiet, wise. A contractor by trade, he built half the homes in our neighborhood, including the one Sabrina and I moved into. He left me everything, his company shares, a trust account, and 3 rental properties out near Hill Country. I didn't want to touch the money at first. Grief made it feel like blood money. But Sabrina insisted. It's what he wanted, she said, rubbing my shoulder as we stood over the will. You should honor that. She was right, technically. But I couldn't ignore the glint in her eye that day. It wasn't grief. It was opportunity. We moved within 2 months. Bigger house. Better zip code. She redesigned everything, from the crown molding to the imported light fixtures. I didn't fight it. Maybe I should have. But I was tired. Tired from carrying the silence. Tired from pretending the distance between us was just a phase. I let her make the calls, sign the papers, choose the marble countertop she'd always dreamed of. I convinced myself that maybe building her dream would wake something back up in her. Spoiler, it didn't. Instead, she got sharper. Not mean exactly, but calculated. When I mentioned missing my dad, she'd sigh and say, "You're still grieving?" If I stayed in bed late on a Saturday, she'd drop a pointed, "You okay? You've been off lately." Once, when I forgot to RSVP to a charity gala, she didn't get mad. She just smiled tightly and said, "It's okay. I'll just tell them you've been struggling again." That word, struggling, it stuck in my throat for days. Then came the bank changes. I didn't notice them at first. Sabrina had always managed most of our household finances. But one morning, I went to pay our cleaning service and saw that the joint account I used for those small transactions had been emptied. "Oh," she said when I asked. "I moved things around. Just consolidating. Makes it easier for taxes." I nodded, but something in me flinched. I logged into our credit union portal later that night. Several accounts were still there. Others had vanished entirely. A new one had been opened, a business checking account under a company name I didn't recognize. I asked about it the next day. She waved it off. "A friend of mine is launching a boutique rental company. I helped her set it up." "It's nothing shady, Griff." I didn't push, but I should have. Then there were the messages. At first, it was just instinct, little moments that didn't add up. Her phone never left her hand. She started sleeping with it under her pillow, claiming she was on call for a friend going through a divorce. She took longer showers. She smiled at texts she wouldn't explain. I wasn't the jealous type, never had been. But this wasn't paranoia. It was pattern recognition. Emotional distance followed by financial secrecy followed by digital hiding. I may have been heart-weary, but I wasn't stupid. I remember one night, maybe 3 weeks before the trip, lying in bed beside her. She was scrolling. I watched the reflection of her screen glow in her glasses. She laughed softly. I asked what was funny. She replied, "Oh, just a meme from Brandy." But when she tilted the phone, I saw no meme. Just a name. A man's name. One I didn't recognize. "Brandy?" I asked. She blinked, then laughed again. "Oops. Wrong chat." That was when the floor in my chest cracked a little wider. I didn't confront her. Not then. Something in me knew that whatever was coming, I needed to be quiet. To observe. To listen. I started checking the mailbox before she could. Watch for receipts she forgot to shred. Listen to phone calls through vents. It felt insane. It felt necessary. Because the more I looked, the more I found. 2 nights before the trip, I found her laptop open on the kitchen island. She was upstairs in the shower. A document was pulled up on the screen, PDF format. It was titled Evaluation Draft, Final. I opened it. The header read, Mental Health Summary, Griffin Miles. The words blurred for a second. I blinked. My own name, underlined in bold. Below it, a narrative, signs of delusional thinking, chronic fatigue, increasing paranoia, possible risk to self and spouse. Diagnosed by Dr. Kelvin Mora, a name I didn't recognize. The footer said it was compiled for guardianship review. I closed it quickly, heart pounding. She hadn't printed it. Not yet. When she came down, towel over her shoulders, I asked what the file was. She didn't flinch. "Oh, that? Brandy's. I'm proofreading a draft for her husband's court case." Her eyes were calm. I nodded, said nothing. But I knew right then this wasn't about infertility or grief or even another man. This was about erasing me. So when she announced the trip, somehow cheerful again, full of faux energy and late-night reservations, I realized it wasn't meant to save our marriage. It was meant to finish me off. Whatever plan she had, it wasn't going to happen in that house. Not with digital trails. Not where neighbors knew our names. She needed me out. Away. Somewhere isolated. Somewhere nobody would question a sudden crisis, a breakdown, a man who snapped. So yes, I packed my bag. I smiled. I played along. But in the pit of my stomach, something uncoiled. I'd spent the last 2 years fading, grieving in silence, letting her tell the story. But I wasn't broken. I wasn't unstable. I wasn't finished. She thought she was taking me to a weekend retreat. She didn't know she was waking me up. The road stretched out in front of us like a promise neither of us believed in. Endless, flat, sun-baked. A pale gray ribbon cutting through the emptiness of Texas Hill Country. Sabrina's fingers tapped the steering wheel to the rhythm of a love song I hadn't heard in years, one we used to slow dance to in our tiny apartment after too much wine. It was playing now, soft through the car's Bluetooth, but it sounded like a parody of itself. I glanced at her. She was humming, lips barely parted, eyes shaded behind massive tortoiseshell sunglasses. I wondered if she felt anything real anymore, or if she was just playing a part she'd memorized too well. She reached over and took my hand. Her grip was light, fingers cool from the iced coffee cup in the console. "This is nice, right?" she said, flashing a smile that barely touched her eyes. Just the two of us. No distractions. No work calls. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I gave her hand a squeeze, then let go under the guise of adjusting the air vents. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was practiced. We perfected the art of talking without saying anything. Her phone buzzed. Again. I stopped counting after the fifth time in an hour. She picked it up, tilted the screen away from me, and let out a soft laugh. "Just the girls," she said, like she had in the kitchen 2 nights ago when that PDF was open on her laptop. "They're blowing up the group chat." I nodded but kept my eyes on the road ahead. The gas gauge dipped below a quarter tank. A sign flashed by exit 37, last stop for 40 miles. "Let's stop," she said quickly, flicking on the blinker. "Stretch our legs, grab a snack." The suddenness in her voice tightened something in my chest. "Sure," I replied, trying to sound indifferent, but my pulse had picked up. My mouth was dry. The exit led to a worn two-lane road, cracked at the edges, flanked by rusted fences and yellowing fields. The gas station ahead looked like it belonged to another decade. The canopy over the single pump was sun-bleached, and the station's sign swung slightly in the wind, one letter missing from the word service. A dog, somewhat with a dusty coat, lifted its head lazily from a patch of shade near the building but didn't bark. This wasn't just remote. It was forgotten. Sabrina pulled into the lot and parked near the pump, letting the engine idle a second before shutting it off. "You want anything?" she asked, already unbuckling. "I'll get us drinks." "I'll check out the restroom," I said. "Stretch my legs a bit." She smiled, too quickly. "Sounds good. I'll be right back." As I stepped out, the dry wind swept across the lot, tugging at the hem of my shirt. I glanced around. The building had a wide front window smudged with dust and fingerprints. Behind it, a guy in a grease-stained shirt was wiping the glass in slow circles. Late 20s, stocky, tint from real work, not Jameer's. As I passed, he looked straight at me. There was something in his eyes, not friendliness, not suspicion. Something else. He didn't say a word, just stepped back, lowered his hand, and suddenly slid something into mine. I looked down. A crumpled gas station receipt, folded twice. Confused, I slipped it into my palm and headed toward the restroom at the side of the building. Inside, I locked the door, turned the faucet on for cover noise, and unfolded the paper. 3 words, written in shaky block letters, "Run now." I stared at it, heart suddenly hammering against my ribs. I read it again, then looked in the cracked mirror above the sink. My face was pale, my breath uneven. I didn't understand, not fully, but I believed it. My instincts didn't need convincing. Something was wrong. When I stepped back outside, the man was waiting near the edge of the building, eyes scanning the lot. Sabrina was still by the car, back turned, phone to her ear. I walked slowly, casually, toward the side of the station. He followed. "She's not who you think she is," he said, voice low, urgent. "She was here last week. With a guy. Mid-40s, beard, wearing a cheap suit. They pulled in and sat for over an hour. Didn't buy anything. Just talked. I was working the shift. I heard parts. She said something about locking you up. Said you were a problem she needed to solve. I thought it was just talk. But when I saw you in the car with her today, I had to say something." I stared at him, struggling to form words. "What, are you sure it was her?" He nodded, eyes hard. "Positive. Same scarf. Same sunglasses. Same car. Same woman." I turned, heart racing. Sabrina was still near the trunk now, rifling through bags like she was looking for something. Maybe she was. Maybe not. My mind flipped through every odd moment from the past few weeks, her coldness, the secrecy, the messages, the gaslighting. "In that file, she say anything else?" I asked, voice cracking. "Anything specific?" "She gave him a folder," the man said. Said, "Everything you need's in there. He won't even see it coming." Folder. Looked official. Like medical stuff. Legal papers, maybe. Man said something about a timeline. She just nodded. They didn't argue. She looked calm, like she'd already made peace with I. He looked at me like I'd just asked the dumbest question in the world. Because I've seen this before. Not exactly this, but close enough. And if I kept my mouth shut back then, his jaw clenched. "Just trust me. If you can walk away now, do it." While you still can. My breath caught. The world tilted. All I could hear was the blood rushing through my ears. I looked back at Sabrina again. This time, she caught my eye. She smiled, waved me over, like nothing was wrong, like she hadn't been plotting anything in the shadows. I turned back to the man. What's your name? Dorian. You got a car? He nodded. It's out back. You want out? I can drive you to town. But once you go, don't go back. She'll spin it. Make you the villain. You ready for that? I didn't answer, but I was already walking. Not to the car, not to Sabrina, to the side of the station, toward Dorian's truck, toward whatever came next. Because whatever she had planned, she wouldn't get to finish it. I stood there, gripping that receipt like it might combust if I let go. 3 words, run now, scrawled in trembling ink, had shattered whatever doubts I still clung to. The restroom light buzzed above me, flickering slightly. My reflection in the mirror didn't look like a man on a romantic weekend. It looked like a man who'd just been handed a warning he couldn't afford to ignore. Outside, the world carried on like nothing had changed. The wind rustled the dry branches of a tree near the station's edge, and the sun cast harsh shadows across the parking lot. But something had shifted in me. I wasn't just a husband on edge. I was prey. When I stepped out of the restroom, the same mechanic who'd handed me the note was waiting, pretending to check the air hose near the side of the building. He didn't look up right away, just kept fiddling with the nozzle until I reached him. You saw it? He asked quietly, eyes scanning the lot. I nodded. What the hell is going on? He wiped his hands on a rag, then glanced toward Sabrina, who stood by the open trunk of the car, pretending to reorganize the bags. Her posture was too relaxed, too practiced, like she was stalling. You don't know me, he said. Name's Dorian. But I've seen your wife before. Last week. Right here. Not with you. I followed his gaze. Sabrina bent to zip a tote closed, then stood, checking her phone. She smiled faintly, probably replying to whoever was feeding her instructions. She was here with a guy, Dorian continued. Slick, older. Looked like he was used to giving orders. They stayed in the car, talking for almost an hour. I was on the shift. I hear things. They weren't being quiet. My stomach tightened. What did they say? He hesitated, then met my eyes. She said something like, it's all in the file. I've made sure he won't see it coming. Called you her liability. Said something about locking you away before the end of the month. She wasn't angry. She was calm. Like it was already done. The air thickened around me. I remembered the document on her laptop, that evaluation draft. At the time, I told myself it had to be for someone else. Sabrina had always been good at faking sympathy for others. But it wasn't someone else's. It was mine. She was building a case, laying a trap, and this man, this stranger, had seen it happening. What kind of file? I asked. Dorian shrugged. Medical, I think. Had a doctor's name on the cover, Kelvin something. She said she'd already paid for the evaluation, that the guy didn't even need to meet you. My mouth went dry. Dr. Kelvin Mora. That's it. He gave a short nod. They were planning something bad. Something that couldn't be undone once it started. I rubbed my forehead, trying to make sense of it all. Why are you telling me this? Dorian's voice dropped lower. Because I've seen this before, man. Different names, same playbook. My cousin, his ex, did something similar. Fake documents, got a doctor to sign off on a mental health claim, locked him up for 72 hours. By the time he got out, she'd drained the accounts and left the state with their kid. The system believed her because she had the paperwork. He didn't even know what hit him. The blood drained from my face. I looked back toward Sabrina. She was holding her phone again, scrolling, smiling. She looked up, spotted me near the side of the station, and waved. I think she's planning to file emergency guardianship, I muttered. She's already playing the long game. Then don't let her finish it, Dorian said. You've got maybe one shot to get out clean. If she reports you missing, if she spins the mental health thing, law enforcement won't ask questions. They'll just follow orders. I took a shaky breath. My mind buzzed with all the pieces finally falling into place. The constant references to my mood swings. Her subtle digs about me needing help. The way she'd started avoiding arguments, letting me look like the irrational one while she played the patient, supportive spouse. She's been building the story for months, I said, laying the groundwork. So when she finally pulls the trigger, no one questions it. Exactly, Dorian said. You don't have to believe me. You can go get in that car, and maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe she really is trying to fix things. But if I were you, he handed me a set of keys from his pocket. I'd leave. Now. I stared at the keys. What's this? My truck's around back. I'll take you to town. From there, you're on your own. But you've got a chance right now. Don't waste it. I looked at the truck keys, then back at the lot. My car. My wife. My whole curated, dying life. Something inside me cracked. Not with fear. With clarity. I've been living in a house of mirrors, constantly adjusting myself to keep the illusion intact. But illusions don't hold up under pressure. They shatter. You sure about this? I asked. Dorian didn't flinch. No one else is going to give you a way out. For a second, I stood frozen. Then I nodded. Let's go. We slipped around the back of the building, staying low behind the broken fencing. The truck was a beat-up Chevy, rust along the edges, but it started clean. I ducked into the passenger seat as Dorian threw it into gear. Through the rear view, I saw Sabrina scanning the lot. But I was already gone. I didn't look back as Dorian pulled the truck onto the road. Not at the gas station. Not at Sabrina. Not at the life I was walking away from like it was on fire behind me. It felt like if I turned around, even once, I'd lose whatever courage had sparked in me the moment I read that note. Run now. That wasn't just a warning. It was permission. Permission to stop pretending. Permission to save myself before someone else decided I didn't deserve the choice. The engine rattled as we cruised down the back road, gravel clicking against the wheel wells. Dorian didn't speak for the first few minutes. He drove like someone who'd done this before, who knew which turns to take without relying on maps or signs. I stared ahead, knuckles white on my knees. My mind spun through every moment of the last year, connecting dots I hadn't wanted to see. I thought I'd been paranoid. But it wasn't paranoia, it was pattern. After about 10 minutes, Dorian finally broke the silence. Town's about 35 minutes out. Small. Quiet. There's a bus depot. You can get pretty far from there. I nodded. Thanks, I said quietly, the word tasting foreign on my tongue. He glanced over. You got a plan after that? I let out a bitter laugh. Not really. Leave. Disappear. Figure it out before she makes sure I don't have the chance. Dorian shifted in his seat. You got cash? Some. Not enough. He reached under the seat and pulled out a worn envelope. Take this. It's a few hundred. I keep emergency money stashed for situations like this. I blinked, staring at it. Why would you help a total stranger like this? He didn't smile. He just looked at me like he saw something familiar. Because people like her count on you not having help. They bank on isolation, on your confusion. And by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late to scream. I've seen this before, man. I can't stop her, but I can get you ahead of it. I took the envelope, swallowing the shame and gratitude tangled in my throat. You're a good man, Dorian. Just a guy with eyes, he said. That woman, she's got steel in her smile. The fake kind. We reached the edge of a small town just past 2 p.m. Dust blew across the road in lazy swirls. It wasn't much. A diner, a hardware store, a tiny post office with peeling paint, and finally, a squat brick building marked bus station. No cameras. No crowds. Just a man behind a scratched glass window eating sunflower seeds while flipping through a battered sports magazine. Dorian parked around the side. I opened the door but hesitated. What if she reports me missing? Says I'm unstable. Gets the cops involved. He leaned his arm over the steering wheel. She might. But she's not going to want to raise flags until her plan's in place. Right now, she's spinning the story. Trying to explain to herself how she lost the thread. You've got a few hours, maybe more. Use them. I nodded. You ever need anything, you call me, I said, grabbing a pen from the glove box and scribbling my old number on the inside of a takeout napkin. If I get somewhere safe, I'll answer. He gave a small salute. Good luck, Griffin. Don't waste your second chance. I stepped out and shut the door. The truck rumbled off without ceremony, disappearing down the street like a ghost that knew when it had done enough. I stood there a moment, the envelope clutched in one hand, my duffel in the other, watching the town breathe. No one paid me any mind. No one recognized me. That was the first piece of peace I'd tasted in months. Inside the station, I bought a one-way ticket east. Didn't even ask where it ended. Didn't care. I wanted distance. The man behind the glass grunted something about arrival times and handed me the stub. I took a seat on the bench, the plastic warm from the sun. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out of my pocket. 17 missed calls. All from Sabrina. At first, I just stared at the screen. The name glowing like a warning. I knew that pattern too: concern, then panic, then control. I tapped once and listened to her voice echo through the voicemail. Griffin? Hey. I'm getting worried. Are you okay? You disappeared, and I don't understand what's happening. Next message. I've called the station. They said you went into the restroom but didn't come out. Where are you? This isn't funny. Then, Griffin, if you're trying to punish me, this isn't the way. We're supposed to be fixing things. And finally, you need help? Griff, you're not well. People are going to see that soon. The tone shifted in that last message. Not worry. Not love. A veiled threat. She was laying the groundwork. Right on schedule. I powered the phone down, removed the SIM card, snapped it in half. I had a burner phone Dorian gave me in my bag, cheap, prepaid, untraceable. I'd use that from now on. I wiped the screen of my real phone with my sleeve, then tossed it into the trash can near the exit. The bus pulled up 30 minutes later, its side panels faded, its brakes squealing like old complaints. I climbed aboard and took a window seat near the back. My heart was still racing, but my lungs were finally expanding fully again. I pressed my forehead to the glass as the town blurred behind us. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Really breathed. The woman who once held my hand through fertility treatments had tried to erase me with paperwork and manipulation, but she hadn't counted on someone speaking up. She hadn't counted on a stranger's decency. And as I watched the horizon swallow the past behind me, I realized something Sabrina never did. I might have been broken, but I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. I walked away like a man just stretching his legs. No drama. No sudden movements. Just one step after another, measured and calm. Sabrina was too busy pretending to search the trunk to notice I hadn't turned back toward the car. She was good at pretending. So was I now. I passed the side of the station like I was just killing time, the Texas sun heating the back of my neck, my mind running faster than my legs. I didn't know what I was running toward. I only knew I wasn't going back. Dorian's truck was already idling behind the old mechanic's shed, its windows rolled down, engine humming low like a whisper between conspirators. The moment I slipped into the passenger seat, he shifted into gear and turned us down the gravel path, taking the long way out. He didn't ask questions. He didn't speak. He just drove like someone who knew the weight of silence, who knew that when your world cracks open, you need time to hear the pieces hit the floor. We didn't hit the main highway. Instead, we wound through back roads, weaving past mesquite trees, rusted wire fences, and old barns that hadn't seen pain in years. It felt like driving back in time. It felt like a place where people disappeared because no one was looking for them. After about an hour, we reached a small bus station on the edge of a town whose name I didn't bother to remember. It had a diner, 2 gas stations, a hardware store with more dust than inventory, and this station. No cameras, no security, no digital footprint. Dorian parked behind the building, cutting the engine. You sure about this? He asked, breaking the silence for the first time in miles. No, I said honestly, but I can't go back. He nodded, pulling a burner phone from the glove box. Take this. Keep it off until you're ready. Don't use your real name. Don't check your cloud accounts. Clean break. That's the only way this works. I took the phone. It was light in my hand, like a tool or a weapon, like a lifeline. What about you? I asked. Won't she come looking? She won't even remember my face, he said, cracking his knuckles. People like her don't see people like me. Just uniforms, transactions. I'm invisible to her. I nodded. That's what she wanted me to be too. He looked at me for a beat, then stayed gone. I thanked him again and stepped out. The air smelled different here, dry, faintly metallic, like old coins and forgotten promises. The station was quiet. A teenager with headphones sat behind the desk, chewing gum and scrolling his phone. I bought a one-way ticket east. Didn't ask where it stopped. Didn't care. As long as it moved forward. The bus arrived 20 minutes later. I climbed on without hesitation, slid into a seat near the back, and pulled the hood of my sweatshirt up. I kept my bag close, my head down. As the engine rumbled to life and the town slid out of view, I felt the tension in my chest shift. Not disappear, but shift. I was no longer cornered. I was mobile. I was untraceable. That was enough for now. I watched the landscape roll by through smeared windows. Oil fields. Dust. Lonely trees. The Texas plains unfolding like a secret they didn't want to keep. The burner phone buzzed once in my pocket, just to let me know it was working. I powered it off. Not yet. My real phone was gone. I had tossed it in a trash can behind the station, right after snapping the SIM card. I had wiped my cloud accounts using Dorian's tablet, logging out of every app, every email, every banking platform. Sabrina wouldn't find me, not for a while. Not until she realized the play she'd been rehearsing didn't have an audience anymore. I watched the shadows stretch across the bus floor as the sun dipped lower in the sky. The first call from her came an hour in, then another, then 12 more. I didn't answer, didn't listen to the voicemails, but I could guess their contents. At first, she'd pretend to be worried. That's the opening act. Concern. Confusion. Where are you, Griffin? Then, it would shift to guilt. This isn't like you. We're supposed to be fixing things. Then finally, control. You're not well. You need help. Come home before it's too late. But I wasn't sick. I was awake. I stared out the window, the engines hum steady beneath my feet. The last time Sabrina and I had taken a trip like this, we were newlyweds. Driving through Colorado in a rented sedan, singing along to Fleetwood Mac, stopping to take pictures at every overlook. I remember thinking, back then, that we were going to build something unbreakable, that the cracks would never reach us. But the truth is, cracks don't start big. They start small. A missed glance. A silent night. A door closed too gently. You don't see them until you're standing in a house held together with tape, and one gust of truth blows the whole thing down. I spent the rest of the ride in silence. No music. No distractions. Just the sound of tires on asphalt and the occasional cough from the man 2 rows ahead. I didn't feel safe. Not yet. But I felt free. And that was more than I'd felt in years. The bus reached Baton Rouge around 10 p.m. I got off with the others, keeping my head low. I walked 4 blocks and paid cash for a room at a small guest house on a side street. No cameras. No IDs. Just a key, a cot, and the kind of silence that wasn't filled with judgment. That night, I stared at the ceiling, sleep nowhere near me. I thought about how easy it had been to vanish. A few lies. A skip step. A man willing to help. And poof, I was gone. And yet, how many nights had I sat at our kitchen table, wondering how to escape without becoming the villain? How many mornings had I stared at her across our kitchen island, wondering if she'd ever really loved me, or if I'd just been a season in her curated life? I don't know when I finally closed my eyes, but I remember the last thing I thought before sleep took me. I wasn't running from her. I was running toward myself. I checked into that guest house under the name Greg Miller. I don't know why I chose it. Maybe because it sounded ordinary, unthreatening, and visible. The room smelled like mothballs and lemon cleaner, with creaky floorboards and a rattling window unit that groaned every hour like it was dying in its sleep. But it was quiet. And more importantly, it was mine. The first space I had claimed in years that didn't come with conditions, performance, or someone else's idea of who I was supposed to be. 2 days passed in silence. I kept the burner phone powered off, used only cash, ate at corner diners where nobody asked questions. Every time a car passed outside, every time a knock came at someone else's door down the hallway, I tensed. My mind replayed those voicemails from Sabrina, though I hadn't listened to them. I didn't need to. I knew her playbook by now. Concern, panic, guilt, accusation. And somewhere in the middle, always control. I didn't know how long I could disappear before she made her move. Maybe she already had. Maybe she was spinning the story of the unstable husband to anyone who would listen. I could see the press release in my head. Griffin Miles has been struggling for some time. We were on a trip to heal. I'm just so worried. She'd cry on cue. People would believe her. Because she had the smile for it. The resume. The curated image. But I had something she didn't count on: truth. And allies. I just had to reach them. I powered on the burner phone that night. It was almost midnight. The screen lit up, simple and clean. No cloud sync. No facial recognition. Just numbers and signal. I typed in the one contact I knew I could still trust, Marielle Truitt. We went to law school together in Chicago, both of us outsiders back then. We lost touch after graduation, but I'd heard she was doing well criminal defense out of New Orleans. Tough. Sharp. Loyal, if you earned it. I sent her a simple message. It's Griffin. I need legal help. Badly. You're the only one I trust. Then I turned the phone off and waited. By morning, there was a single reply. Where are you? Talk to me. I called her from a payphone 4 blocks away. The moment she picked up, I nearly choked. Griff. Her voice was cautious, but alive with recognition. Jesus. I thought you were dead. I might have been, I said quietly. Not anymore. What's going on? I told her everything. From the trip, to Dorian, to the note, to the burner phone in my pocket. I told her about the file I saw on Sabrina's laptop, the whispers at the gas station, the man she'd met with. I didn't hold back. Not this time. No more protecting her. No more downplaying what I knew. When I finished, Marielle was silent for a beat. Then she said, "You need a PI. Someone who can verify everything you saw. You're not going to win this by running. You need proof. Paper. Photos. Names." "I don't have that," I said. "You will," she replied. "I've got a guy. Jordan Fielding. Ex-military. Worked surveillance for years before going private. He owes me. I'm calling him today. You trust him. With my life. And now yours." I exhaled. "Thank you. I'm not doing this for thanks," she said. "I'm doing this because I've seen too many men get crushed by women who knew how to spin a narrative. If she's lying, we'll catch her. If she's dirty, we'll bury her." She meant every word. That's why I'd called her. Within 72 hours, Jordan Fielding had a full file on Sabrina. And what he uncovered wasn't just concerning, it was surgical. Cold. Intentional. "She's been planning this for at least 8 months, Jordan said during our first call. His voice was gravelly, no nonsense. "We pulled financials, social media, real estate activity, and a few subpoena-ready sources that, well, let's just say she didn't cover her tracks like she thought." "What do you have?" I asked, pacing the floor of the guest house. "She started a shell company 6 months ago, called Millaris Ventures. It's a holding firm registered under her maiden name. Looks like she's been transferring assets there slowly, mostly real estate tied to your trust. Rental properties. Commercial holdings. She forged your digital signature on multiple documents." My mouth went dry. "She what?" "She's good, but not that good. There's metadata. IP addresses. Timestamps. She did it while you were asleep. One filing happened while you were logged into your Netflix account from a different device across town." I rubbed my temples. "So she's stealing from me." "She's not just stealing," Jordan said. "She's trying to erase you. She paid off a psychiatrist named Dr. Kelvin Mora. Fake evaluations, fraudulent claims. The guy never met you, but signed off on a diagnostic form labeling you paranoid and delusional. The goal? Emergency guardianship. Once approved, she'd control everything." My jaw tightened. "And then what?" "Then she'd disappear you. Commit you for 72 hours minimum. Long enough to finalize the transfers, freeze your accounts, and have full power of attorney. Once she filed the guardianship paperwork, you'd have no legal standing to fight it until after evaluation. By then, she'd already win." I sat on the edge of the bed, my legs shaking. "Can you prove it?" "We already have," he said. "Bank records, IP logs, third-party statements. And you're going to get a copy of that evaluation file too. It's been submitted for review." That's how confident she was she used real systems. "That's going to burn her." "And the doctor?" "Already flagged with the state board. Once the paperwork gets filed, he'll be in custody before he can shred a page." I was quiet for a moment. "Jordan." "Yeah, you're saving my life." There was a pause. That's what the good ones do. That night, I sat with the printed file in my lap. Names, statements, timelines. Evidence, not just of her betrayal, but of her intention to erase me from the story completely. Not because I was a danger. Not because I was unstable. But because I was inconvenient. Because I was in the way of her version of success. But now? Now I had a file of my own. It started with a signature. Mine. Or at least, the one she thought she could fake well enough to slide past attorneys, trustees, and courts. That arrogance, that blind confidence Sabrina always wore like perfume, was the crack we pried open first. Marielle filed the fraud alert paperwork before the sun rose. She'd stayed up the entire night at her office in New Orleans, red-penning Sabrina's forged filings like a professor dissecting a thesis written by a lazy student. "This," she told me, holding up a printout over our secure video call, "is the one that'll hang her. The transfer form for the Blanco Street rental unit. She backdated it, claimed you signed it in March. Only problem? That same night, you were logged into your Hulu account at 9:17 p.m. in Baton Rouge. Your IP address puts you in a completely different region. And guess who filed this from her home network in Austin?" I didn't speak. I didn't have to. Just seeing it laid out, clean, chronological, undeniable, was like watching someone rip the mask off a monster and finally realizing the growl had always been a rehearsed sound effect. With Jordan's evidence packaged and notarized, we contacted the fiduciary manager who oversaw the trust my father left me. We showed him the documents, the forgeries, the evaluation files tied to Dr. Mora, and the conversations recorded from Sabrina's burner account. One Jordan had access through an old backup login. She'd been planning this in a WhatsApp chat titled Insurance. The irony wasn't lost on me. By noon, the trust was frozen. All asset movement halted. Access revoked. Sabrina wouldn't see it until her next login attempt. That was the beginning of the end. The moment the lever shifted, I wasn't the confused husband anymore, clinging to the edges of a story I couldn't control. I was the one holding the pages now. And Sabrina? She was about to choke on her own script. We timed everything. Jordan called it controlled retaliation. Marielle called it surgical. I just called it overdue. The court documents were prepared, signed, and processed within 36 hours. Fraudulent transfer of assets. Forgery. Conspiracy to commit guardianship fraud. A formal complaint was filed with the Texas Medical Board against Dr. Kelvin Mora, accompanied by screenshots, testimony, and subpoena-ready files. She never saw it coming. Sabrina was at a resort in Dallas when she was served. A spa weekend with her girlfriends, those perfectly filtered women who clinked glasses at champagne brunches and traded secrets like social currency. She was probably in a robe, sipping cucumber water, legs dipped in an overpriced pedicure soak, when the envelope arrived. Jordan had an associate on site, watching from the bar. He said her face froze mid-laugh. The glass didn't even reach her lips. One moment, she was the charming wife with the Instagram-ready smile. The next, she was just a woman holding proof that the game was over. She called me that night. Blocked number. I answered. There was a pause. Then her voice, sweet at first, that sugar-glazed tone she used when she wanted to sell something. You've made a mistake, she said. This isn't how it was supposed to go. I didn't say anything. Let the silence stretch. She tried again. We could have had everything, Griffin. The house, the trust. We could have rebuilt. I panicked. You were drifting. I had to protect myself. I let out a quiet laugh. You already had everything, Sabrina. My loyalty. My name. My time. And it still wasn't enough. You think you're safe now? She hissed, venom seeping through. You think you've won? You ran. That makes you unstable. I sat forward in the dim motel room, my voice low, steady. You filed a fake psychiatric report. Paid a doctor to commit fraud. Forged my name on property transfers. You're not just a liar, Sabrina. You're a criminal. And now you're exposed. You're nothing without me, she snapped. That's the first honest thing you've said, I replied. Because now, I'm finally something without you. Then I hung up. The next morning, she and Dr. Moore were arrested. Jordan sent me a photo from a news report, both in handcuffs, heads down. Fraud. Conspiracy. Professional misconduct. The charges stacked like dominoes. Marielle had moved fast, requesting a full mental health evaluation, this time for Sabrina. The irony was almost poetic. She had tried to label me unstable, and now she was being forced to prove her own fitness in a courtroom. I didn't feel joy. Not exactly. What I felt was something closer to peace. A cold, slow-burning peace that came from knowing I hadn't imagined it. That all the gaslighting, all the micro-abuses hidden under the glow of social approval, all the quiet humiliations she'd passed off as jokes, they were real. Documented. Validated. People always assume justice feels like victory. It doesn't. It feels like a reset. Like a splinter finally pulled from deep under the skin. There's still pain. Still a scar. But at least it's clean. The last thing I did that day was walk into a small legal office in Baton Rouge and sign a power of attorney form, this time assigning it to Marielle, in case I ever found myself in need again. Not because I was paranoid, but because I had learned the hard way that trust should never be blind. That night, I opened the window of my room and let the air in. No more rehearsals. No more curated smiles. Just me and the quiet. And for the first time in years, it was enough. The house sold faster than I expected. I didn't even list it myself. Marielle handled the logistics through a broker she trusted. I didn't go back to pack anything. I didn't want to step foot inside those walls again. A local company boxed up my things and shipped them to a storage unit under my new name. I told them to keep it simple. What fits in a single truck, keep. The rest, donate, burn, trash. It didn't matter. I didn't need reminders of a life that had become one long, drawn-out performance. I sat on a bench outside the courthouse the day the final property transfer cleared. The sky above Baton Rouge was clear and soft, the kind of blue that made you feel like you had more time than you actually did. I had just signed the release form. Sabrina's name was removed from every deed, every document. Her reach was officially severed. Legally, financially, and in every way that mattered. I opened my duffel bag, the same one I'd packed for that weekend trip I never came back from, and pulled out a single envelope. Inside was a check, the final payout from my father's trust. Sabrina would never touch it. She tried to turn it into a weapon. Now it would fund something that actually mattered. By the end of the week, I was in a sleepy Gulf Coast town about 3 hours from the city. I found it by accident, really, somewhere between map searches and word-of-mouth conversations in local diners. The kind of town that didn't ask many questions. The kind of town where people still held doors open and nodded hello. Where no one cared who you used to be. There was a rundown building near the corner of Main and Ellis. Formerly a dentist's office. Beige brick, cracked windows, a faded for lease sign dangling from one corner. But I saw something in it. Potential. Not in the building, but in the idea. I called the number and signed a lease that afternoon. Within 6 weeks, I opened a legal resource center. Not a full firm. I wasn't ready for that. But a place where people could walk in with questions, scared, uncertain, alone, and not feel invisible. I called it Second Draft Legal. Marielle helped me set up the nonprofit paperwork. She even came down for the ribbon cutting, wearing heels too high for the broken sidewalks and giving a speech that made everyone laugh. She said, "Griffin knows what it's like to almost lose everything. That's why he's exactly the kind of person you want on your side." I didn't say much that day. Just thanked the crowd, cut the ribbon with the world's dullest scissors, and shook hands until my wrist ached. But later, when it was just me and Marielle locking up the office, I turned to her and said, "You didn't just save my life. You gave me the chance to build a better one." She smiled. "Now go make sure someone else gets that chance too." And I did. My first client wasn't who I expected. A middle-aged man, maybe mid-50s, wearing a wrinkled shirt and carrying a stack of letters tied with twine. His landlord had filed eviction papers over repairs the man refused to pay for: mold, exposed wires, things that could kill someone. "They say I'm difficult," he told me, "but I just want to breathe in my own house without choking." I helped him write a proper response, coached him through the hearing, even found him an advocate in the city's housing department. He won. He cried. I didn't. But I felt something loosen in my chest. They kept coming after that. A young mother being denied custody because she'd missed one court date while working 2 jobs. An elderly woman tricked into signing away her car. A teenager with nowhere to go after being forced out by guardians who resented who he was. People the system was designed to confuse, ignore, or break. And each time, I listened. I didn't save them. I just stood with them while they saved themselves. I donated half my wardrobe. Not as some symbolic gesture, just practicality. I didn't need 3 versions of the same suit. Didn't need cufflinks I hadn't worn in years or shoes that only looked good in courtrooms I no longer feared. I kept 1 good tie, 2 pairs of slacks, and a blazer with a coffee stain on the inside lapel. It was enough. The rest of my days were quieter than I ever imagined they'd be. I drove a used Jeep that rattled slightly when I turned left. I cooked dinner most nights. Simple stuff. Stir fry, grilled fish, a lot of eggs and toast. The kind of food you make when you're finally eating because you're hungry, not because you're trying to fill silence with activity. I read more. Mostly case studies and old mysteries. I never turned on cable. The noise of it reminded me too much of that hollow house in Austin. One night, I sat on my porch as the sun dropped behind the water. The air smelled like salt and something citrus I couldn't name. A young couple walked past, laughing, their arms brushing. Across the street, a man watered his lawn with a half-broken hose, waving at me with the casual kindness that still caught me off guard. No one here asked about my past. No one whispered. They just let me be. That porch became my church. I used to think betrayal had a sound, like glass breaking or shouting. But I learned it doesn't. It's soft. It's polite. It hides behind smiles and toasts. It's the hand that rubs your back while pushing you toward a cliff. But recovery? That has a sound too. It's the scratch of a pen signing a lease in your name. It's the creak of a door you open without bracing for what's behind it. It's the breath you take when no one's watching, and you finally let your chest rise all the way. My life had been a house of paper walls, built on appeasement and appearances. Now, I was building something with doors I chose to open. And this time, I wasn't letting anyone else hold the key. The call came just after sunset. I was closing up the clinic, locking the file cabinet I bought secondhand from a consignment shop and switching off the desk lamp. The old floor creaked beneath me as I crossed to the front door, phone buzzing in my back pocket. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to. Griffin, a familiar voice said. It's Dorian. For a second, I just smiled. Dorian, I said. I didn't think I'd ever hear from you again. He chuckled. Didn't think I'd call. But I saw something the other day, thought of you. Just checking in. You okay? I looked around the small front room of the legal clinic. The faded armchairs. The community bulletin board with half the flyers crooked. The donation jar still half full. Outside, the street was quiet, the last streaks of gold fading from the sky. I'm better than okay, I said. I'm whole. He was quiet for a moment. You ever trust again? I leaned against the doorframe, watching a kid ride past on his bike, his shoelaces flapping wild. I do, I said, but not the way I used to. I trust quieter now. I listen longer. And I trust myself the most. He laughed softly. You sound like a man who survived something big. I did. We didn't speak long, just enough to bridge the space between us. A quiet man in a gas station and the stranger he chose to help. That night, I stood barefoot on the porch of my new home. Not a mansion. Not some designer-built estate. Just a modest, whitewashed cottage with wind chimes hanging from the eaves and chipped paint on the steps. The sea breeze carried the scent of salt and pine, and in the distance, waves licked the shore like they'd been doing long before I was born and would keep doing long after I was gone. I looked out into the night and saw no threats. No shadows with secrets. Just moonlight on water and a world that didn't owe me anything, but didn't try to take from me either. Inside, the mirror in the hallway caught my reflection. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at the man looking back. The lines around his eyes. The weight he'd carried. The peace he'd earned. For so long, I'd been whoever Sabrina needed me to be. The dependable one. The calm one. The audience to her stage play. But now, no one else owned my story. No one else got to decide whether I was sane, valuable, or good enough. I was just Griffin. And that was finally enough. People ask me sometimes, those who know bits and pieces of what happened, if I regret leaving without confrontation, without closure. I tell them the same thing every time. I didn't leave. I returned. To myself. To truth. To the life I should have been living all along. And if anyone ever finds themselves holding a note that says run now, read it twice. Then go. Because on the other side of escape, there's something better than safety. There's freedom.